So as you can tell from the title of this video, I've been officially banned from TikTok. And I'm not quite sure exactly why that is. I haven't posted anything that violates the community guidelines or anything like that. The only explanation that I can really think of is that people just weren't really liking the videos that much for some reason. And maybe it's because I'm wearing a mask. Maybe it's because I talk about things that people are not so comfortable with. But the strange thing is that I didn't get any kind of indication that I was going to be banned. And like I said, I didn't do anything necessarily that violates the parameters of the community guidelines. Now, it could be a situation where my content is just too shocking for some viewers based on the fact that I wear a mask. I'm not really sure, to be honest, why that has happened. And hopefully I will get the account back. But I'm honestly not too concerned about that because in the greater picture of everything, it's not really a very big concern of mine. There's a lot of other things in my life that I'm worried about that has nothing to do with TikTok. So, of course, I make videos about getting rid of your fear, getting rid of worry, getting rid of doubt. But the thing is, I still find myself to be a victim of these things from time to time. And it's just part of being a human on this planet. It's just part of being alive. We're going to experience things that make us feel uncomfortable. We're going to experience things that cause doubts inside of our mind, things that cause worry, and it's all just a part of life. And if you let these things control you, if you let outside external forces continue to play such a heavy role, you're never really going to be able to take 100% control of your life because you're handing over control to these various things and you're assigning your happiness or your satisfaction or your fulfillment has been assigned to an external parameter that you are measuring, and you're measuring this thing, and perhaps you're saying to yourself, if this happens to be a decent outcome, then I will be satisfied, I will be happy. If I get this thing to work, then everything else will fall into place. And I'm afraid that's just not how things work in life. You have to take your time and you have to slow down and you have to make exceptions for certain things that if they do not go your way immediately or in a very short period of time, you still have to invest and you still have to be patient. Because even though when you're going on the very first few steps of a new journey, you're absolutely going to face some kind of criticism from others around you, or you're going to face certain blockades or certain obstacles that are in the way, in the path that you are trying to create. So if you allow these obstacles to affect you so much to a degree that you no longer continue the activity that you were engaged in, then you basically allow these things to take over your life, and you allow these things to control you to a certain degree, because you're saying that even though this thing that I was relying on went wrong, I'm going to decide that this is the determining factor that's going to decide whether or not I'm happy, or whether or not I'm satisfied. And you shouldn't assign external things with such a high degree of responsibility, because everything around you could fail at any moment in time. In other words, there are so many things that are outside of our control, and many times we assign certain protocols to these things, and we expect a certain type of outcome from different circumstances or different things that we've been working on, and it's not always going to work out in our favor. There will be times, perhaps, when you experience some kind of a short-term result from something that you've been working on, and you might see that eventually, in the beginning, things are doing well and things are going your way. But somewhere along the line, things crash out, and whether it's a business that you're starting or a new relationship that you've just recently engaged in, or it's a job that you're trying to get, and whatever it is that you've started your mission on, sometimes it doesn't work out in your favor, and you just have to be willing to move on and to figure out how you're going to adapt to the new circumstances that you may find yourself in at that time, which can honestly be difficult in the beginning, because you have to accept certain things that were previously unacceptable in your mind, because maybe you were thinking that if this particular situation doesn't happen the way that you want it to, that you're going to give up, or that you're going to give in, and you're not going to continue on. This is a very foolish way of thinking, because what it does is it sets you up for failure in the long term, because you expect a certain result, and once that result does not come to you immediately, you end up feeling disappointed, and you end up feeling like you've almost been robbed of something, because that space in your mind has already been created, and you've already been thinking that a certain type of an outcome is going to happen. And when that outcome does not come to fruition, you might experience frustration, or you may experience anger, you may experience disappointment to a degree which was obviously preventable if you just didn't assign so much responsibility to an outcome. And the way that you can do this is by accepting the fact that there is a level of uncertainty in every endeavor that we face in life, in every decision that we make, in everything that we choose to invest ourselves into. There is no guarantee that everything is going to happen exactly the way that we want it to. And there's no guarantee that things are going to line up perfectly. So you just have to be able to adjust your perspective based on that fact. And the fact that I've been banned from TikTok, either permanently or impermanently, it doesn't really affect my life, because there's other things that I'm working on. And same with this YouTube channel. I don't have any specific goals for the channel. I'm just putting information out into the world, and I don't have any expectations for what that's going to return. Because having expectations of things is really the way that you can end up disappointed. If you expect someone to behave a certain way in your life, or you expect someone to change, obviously, they might not do that. If you expect a certain job application to go through, and you go through the interview process and everything like that, you can't immediately expect them to hire you, because obviously they have other candidates for that position. And the same thing is true when starting a business. You can't expect your business to take off right away and become profitable. So you just have to be a little bit more patient, number one. And also, You have to have different options available to you. And if you feel like your options are limited, there are things you can do to expand the number of options that are available. But I promise to you that you just have to keep more of an open mind, and you have to be aware that if one thing fails, there are 5 other things that you can do to kind of mitigate that situation and to kind of pivot off of the circumstances that have happened to you and create something different. So even though it feels difficult in the short term, even though it feels like life can be against you at some times, you have to find your inner strength, and you have to find acceptance and gratitude. You have to find things in your life that you are grateful for, and you use these as a tool to recognize that even though several or more things didn't work out the way you wanted them to, there's still things in your life that you have that you appreciate, and you hold on to these because these are the reasons that keep you motivated, that keep you driven. Even on your darkest days, you're able to recognize the fact that there are many things in your life that you can still be appreciative for. This is one of the antidotes, if you will, against parameters that are uncontrollable. There's certain things that we simply cannot control the outcome of, no matter how much effort that we put into, no matter how hard we try, or how much skill we utilize towards a very specific goal. It doesn't always work out in our favor. So we have to be adaptable, and we have to be willing to accept failure as an option. If you're only striving towards success and you're not willing to fail, then you're obviously going to end up being severely disappointed when you come face to face with the reality that not everything works out the way that you wanted it to. So going back to square one, I'm not necessarily disappointed about the fact that I've been banned from TikTok. I'm just a little bit confused about the parameters surrounding that because I don't understand exactly why that happened. But that doesn't mean that I'm disappointed. It just means that I have to find a way to pivot off of these current situations and find a way to grow, find a way to improve. There's a lot to learn in the entire process of being alive because you're going to come across so many different levels of disappointment, so many different levels of experiencing loss and failure, that if you allow that to discourage you from taking the next step, then you're going to fall very far behind. Because the moment that you give in to these circumstances is really the moment that you're telling yourself that there's nothing you can do. You're accepting these things as they come to a certain degree, but you're also allowing them to have this massive amount of influence on your brain or on your feelings. And these feelings that come to you, you're letting them cloud your judgment. You're basically not seeing things as they really are, because this one disappointment or this one failure or whatever it is, it's causing a certain amount of distress, and it's causing you to not be able to see things from a clear perspective. So the thing that you have to do in order to eliminate that is, like I said earlier, stop holding on to expectations about how something is going to go. Stop holding on to the idea that everything is just going to line up perfectly in the beginning. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort to be able to align yourself correctly in the right ways to make certain things happen. And we'll give a small example. So let's say that you have a certain amount of money that you want to make, and you're trying to do so in 6 months to a year. And perhaps you've already found a vehicle that's going to allow you to do this. But when you start getting involved in the space, you don't make as much money as you wanted to. In a lot of people, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're starting a new business, or you're going into some kind of a new venture like that, you might become very discouraged by the results that you receive in the beginning, because you're going to be looking at things and you're going to be comparing that to the achievements and the goals that you had lined up, and you had a certain timeline in place and you expected things to line up by that time. And if they don't, then you end up a little bit disappointed. The problem there is that you've attached your identity to a certain result, and when that result does not come, you feel a little bit lost, or you feel disappointed and you feel discouraged, and you're not sure how to continue. You're not sure how to adjust your mentality so that you can face the fact of uncontrollable parameters, and you can face the fact of uncertainty of all outcomes. I know that's a lot to take in, but there's more to go from here. Just give me a slight moment. So letting go of expectations, letting go of the fact that you cannot control the outcome of anything, despite the amount of effort that you put into it. Letting go of the fact that things are going to happen outside of your control, and being able to adapt to all of these different things is really the skill of someone who has the longevity to be able to see it through to the end, to be able to see it through the hard times, to see through the failures, to see through the disappointment, and not allow that to beat you down, because you're much stronger than that, and you have so much more potential that is stored within you, despite the fact of whatever outcome it is that you're facing. You still have so much more opportunity on the line, and you have to focus your awareness on the fact that all of this potential is right in front of you. So you have this boundless energy of potential, and you're allowing this one or two or several things. You're allowing these things to affect you in a way that's distorting your perception to where you almost lose sight of all the other possibilities. You almost fall off track to a degree where you're not able to recognize that there's other things you can be doing. There's other areas that you can be investing yourself into that could deliver a different result, or you could be changing the dynamics and the principles of your own decision making via the specific area that you're trying to make progress in. And you can utilize new protocols, and you can learn from your different failures, and you can use all of these teachings to adjust your behavior, to adjust your actions in a way that are going to serve you in the long term. Ways that are going to change your life in the long term. There's nothing that can change your life overnight. There's nothing that can change your life in just a few weeks. If there is, it's something that's very rare, and otherwise you have to work for a very long time to be able to create progress in the things that you desire and the things that you want to accomplish. You have to keep going. You have to see it through. You have to be willing to face the failure. You have to be willing to face the disappointment. You have to be willing to face the criticism and the judgment of others around you who might be calling you crazy, or they might be calling you as something, any kind of derogatory name that they might be assigning to you because you've chosen a different path. But just because you chose to walk on a different path than they did, it doesn't mean that your decisions then become invalidated, because these people around you, they don't have the same vision as you. They don't have the same goals that you do. They don't have the same experiences that you have had. They don't have the same vision or mentality or perception. So it's important not to let these things get you down, not to let the opinions of others discourage you either from going on the path that you know is true to you. The path that you know is the one that's going to eventually bring great things into your life. So you just have to keep going, and you have to stay strong, and you can't let other people affect your mentality. You can't let failure bring you down to a point where you give up. You can't let signs of things that are going wrong cause you to completely destroy your mentality, to get rid of your ambition. You have to keep your ambition close to your heart, and you have to keep these things in mind to be able to recognize that your passion and your influence and your skills, all of these things will bring something into fruition with enough time passing and enough failures overcome and enough effort put into the situation. So continue fighting, continue being strong, and continue to be confident. And even though you might face certain limitations on your path, you have to be willing to face these, and you have to be willing to overcome them, and you have to be willing to say that enough is enough, and stop giving yourself away to mediocre things, people that don't serve a higher purpose in your life, situations, entertainment, information. You have to pay very close attention to what you are consuming, what kind of food that you're putting into your body, what kind of data are you putting into your mind, what kind of conversations are you having every day with your friends, your family, your co-workers, people that you surround yourself with. All of these things can play a certain kind of a role and a certain amount of influence over you. So if you take very close account of these things, you can measure them and you can determine what the results are from them. And then you can start to remove the people, the places, the situations that are not serving your higher potential, that are not helping you along the path of creating a better future. And when you start to release these things, your life begins to take off in ways that you can never imagine. You start to do things that you never thought were possible. You start to experience realities that you could have never imagined. So if you can put that into perspective, it's the understanding that even though right now things don't look the best, if you give it enough time and you give it enough effort, things will eventually turn in your favor and you will eventually come out ahead. You just have to keep fighting. You have to keep going. You have to turn away from the failure, and don't let failure define you. Just let it be a learning lesson. Let it be an opportunity. And the more that you can learn from those failures and the more you can learn from those setbacks, you're going to place yourself even further ahead because you're eliminating things from the possibilities, things that would otherwise cause you to be delayed in your achievement. You've eliminated those, and so you've brought yourself that much closer to the path that you want to be on. If if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for staying here. And I hope to be able to upload more videos in the near future. I can't make any promises currently, but I can say that I'm very appreciative that you've been listening, and if you could subscribe and like this video, I would very much appreciate that. Now let's get back to the subject. I just have a few last points that I want to make. And the very first thing is that your emotions can be very heavy during certain times. And sometimes these emotions can be so overwhelming that they essentially cloud your judgment and they prevent you from being able to make logical decisions. And when you're prevented from making logical decisions, you end up in a place where you're being controlled by your emotions and you're being led down a path of inauthenticity, a path that is not defined by your true self. And if you find yourself in this place, then you have to change the emotion and you have to change your mind. And you can do this by focusing on the solution instead of the problem. Focus on what you can do today to make a difference. Focus on what you can do now to change your reality. Start with the very smallest things and go from there. It's sort of almost like a snowball effect. When you start with the smallest thing and you go to the next thing and the next thing, and before you know it, you'll be so far along in your progress in a way that you never even could have recognized how far that you've come today. And the more that you can do this, you're going to create more and more progress in your life. And eventually, the things that were disappointing you or the failures that you felt like were coming in your way as an obstacle will slowly start to fade away. And eventually, you'll come to a place of appreciation where you can look back on the past and you can be grateful for all of these things that you've learned through the years and through the failures that you've had to endure. And you can face the oncoming obstacles with that much more confidence and that much more will to be able to be strong and to be able to face the obstacles and not be so afraid of them and not be so off-put by the fact that there are certain uncontrollable facts of life that we all have to face eventually. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I'm not really sure why my TikTok has been banned. At this point, it's not really a major concern of mine because of all of the things that I mentioned in the video. But I'm going to continue to move forwards, and I'm going to continue to do my best to bring a positive message to anyone who's willing to listen, to anyone who needs to hear the things that I'm saying, even though, everything I say might not be true. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But if you got any kind of positivity or motivation from these words, then I'm extremely grateful that you were able to find this video, because the algorithm these days is not the best. And it's not great that I wear a mask like this, because apparently a lot of people don't like that. And I don't try to scare anyone. I'm not trying to be, frightening in any way like that. I just do it for anonymous reasons. And I try to bring the best information that I can to anyone that's willing to listen. So I really appreciate that you've made it this far into the video. And I hope that what I've said has helped you to overcome some kind of a limitation that you may have been facing mentally or otherwise. And I hope to be able to bring even more information for you in the future. So please subscribe. I know that's the second time I've said this in the video. I don't like saying it either. But if you enjoy the information, just remember that I'm going to continue to deliver more of it, and I hope that you have a safe night or a safe day. Goodbye.